this week. I'm just fixing up one tiny little thing here. Okay, I think that's right. Okay. Alright, how was everyone's week? I have some incredible things to show you tonight. I hope you love it just as much as I do. First off, campaign launch of Scott Morrison. Did you know that we had to pay for it until his campaign launched? I didn't know that until today. So, me learning that, I wondered when the ALP launched theirs, May 1st. In other words, they paid for theirs in whole hog. All of those weird ads that the LNP put out, you paid for that crap. Yeah, sad really, and it was just a terrible, terrible moment from the LNP that looked as bad as it possibly could. What really bothered me about this is how dishonest the whole thing was. The launch itself, it had this feel of, oh, I'm going to be this better guy now. No, and let me show you how not just I see it, but there are other people looking on going, yeah, no, you're not exactly honest here. So, take a listen.
Hello, I'm from the Australian government, where we've literally tried everything to win this election, apart from being not shit. Tim tried to stop you putting up signs in your front yard. Dave swapped preferences with this cooker. Alan went into hiding. Fiona went full Karen. Josh told you these are fake independents. But despite having the might of the entire country's corporate media stacked behind us, none of our bullshit, miracles, seem to be working this time. Where are the miracles, Australia?
Where are the goddamn miracles?
Did we not stoke that culture war enough?
There's a boat full of Chinese trans athletes spying on public toilets off the coast of WA. And Albo gave them visas.
Fuck it, looks like you've finally cottoned on to all our bullshit, Australia. And so now it looks like we might lose this election. Of course, that's how it looked on the eve of the last election too. So if you'd like to help history repeat, we ask you to please relax, take your eye off the ball, and let yourself be lulled into a sense of security as we ramp up the Scott fuckery to unimaginable levels during this final crucial week. Starting off by telling you that we'll change if you re-elect us. Sure, our entire campaign was built on vote for us because you know who we are and you don't know the other bloke. But then we realised the problem is that you do know who we are. So now our slogan is vote for us because we'll be someone else. There's more Scotties you haven't seen. We can be loose units too. Are we desperate? Sure. Are we all out of ideas? Absolutely. But are there enough of you left who we might just convince to re-elect us? We fucking hope so. Australian government.
Alright, bye. Government.
I think that that's a perfect start to the show. I think it really shows what we're up for. I think that there is I live in a very safe ALP seat, so my vote is essentially one of those votes that when you look at it, you go, oh, you're just one of many ALP voters in the area that I'm in. But I have spoken to people that are outsiders of this electorate, and I think that there is this like real toxicity involving the LNP. It's like this funk that can't be undone, unwind for them. But I think this is a good place to start, and this is why I think that they're gonna have a really, really hard time running away from all of their stuff right now. They just haven't been honest right from the outset. And I think that this lie is going to be the worst thing that he's ever done.
Okay, you found it. What did Alan Tudge say? Alan Tudge has just...
Listen to this.
To help maintain my general health and well-being.
So listen to this and then see what you think of the approach that is. Okay. Nearly there, and
The frustrating things about the Liberals campaign is that they've bungled a really important debate on transgender politics. Now, it's true that the Prime Minister...
Oh, that really buggered me up. Okay. I don't know why it's doing this. It's stopping it today. Come on, get to the good part. I don't want to listen to an Andrew Bolt take on anything. He's a horrible human. But I think that this is going to be something that comes up about Alan Tudge and the 500,000 and how much they're going to deny it.
This time this election on his role in the cabinet and why he's kept such a low profile during the campaign. Our Melbourne reporter Jessica Maggio spoke with him exclusively. Jessica, you found it. What did Alan Tudge have to say?
Now, here's where it gets interesting, what Alan Tudge says to what the Prime Minister says. And it's going to be an interesting battle of basically which one's telling the truth, the Prime Minister or Scott Morrison.
Well, Ash, we're here at one of the pre-polling booths ahead of the election, and he has been doing some campaigning. He's been a hard one to knuckle down. In fact, he's kept a pretty low profile during campaigning for this election. But we spoke to him about some of the issues as to why that might be the case. It could be because of the allegations that were made against him last December by a former staffer with which he was having an affair. He spoke about that to me exclusively. He also spoke about failing to mention to the...
Keep in mind that this is very favourable Sky News, so they're going to try and glean this for any positivity that they can. And no one else has really touched it. And the only ones that did was Sky News, then gave him this, I don't know, weird praising moment that they finally seen him.
PM, the $1 million transfer of property to his ex-wife following that turmoil. So certainly he's kept that low profile, likely because of these allegations that he has vehemently denied, obviously. But we asked him as well about his role in the cabinet and whether he'll keep the education portfolio. Here's what he had to say. You know that the Department of Finance is negotiating a $500,000 payout for your former staffer, Rachel Miller, and why would they be doing that?
As the Prime Minister said, he's unaware, I'm unaware. It's a matter for the Department of Finance.
Yeah, no, see how quick it was? Oh, no, I don't know what happened. See, it's weird. When you're in government, you're supposed to know who ordered this. See, wouldn't it be really bizarre if, you know, they could really play this off well? I don't know. It's so strange. And then Sky News lets him get away with it.
If you've been cleared of allegations, though, why would they be organising a $500,000 payout?
I'm not aware of any of those things. I have no information. I haven't been called as a witness. I haven't been asked to provide evidence. And as the Prime Minister said, if it involved me, he would have been made aware, and he hasn't been made aware.
And just finally on your former staffer, there are reports...
Whoa. So you mean the government actually is acting in a way where he's not aware of what government is doing? Gee, that sounds a little bit negligent, Mr. Tudge, don't you think? If you're going to make such a ridiculous claim, why don't you at least be honest about some of it? So your claim is that there's a finance department handing $500,000 to I don't know what. I don't know what it's for. But you want re-electing, right? You want to be at a pre-polling station and tell people, vote for me, but I'm going to pay $500,000 out in a payment. But I don't know anything about it. No, it's weird. And I would say that a deposition has been made. This is why we need an ICAC. I definitely think they would have made him testify. And if they didn't, and they were just handing out $500,000 because she made a complaint without any corroborating statement, that's negligence. I'm not saying I don't believe Rachel. I'm saying that this is something that needs a lot more scrutiny. You can't have this moment of re-elect me, we're awesome, but then have, I don't know what happened to the 500,000. It's just your money. Why should you need to know? It's so weird. But Sky News will let him get away with that kind of explanation.
That you asked her to keep quiet to a formal security review. Why would you have done that?
Well, I didn't do that. I just asked her to tell the truth.
And why have you not made any appearance? Why have you kept a low profile during these final weeks of campaigning ahead of the election?
Well, I've been very busy in my local electorate here. You can see from my social media, and
I've been so busy, no one has been able to catch me. I'm Speedy Gonzalez. No, for real. This is like smacking you in the face. This is like hidden out in plain sight. And why is he only doing the interview with Sky News? Doesn't anyone else find that weird that he's got this favourable media that will go, oh, poor Alan Tudge, we're going to pre-ask you questions about something that you did bad, and we're not going to go into any further detail. We're just going to say, we're asking. It's so weird. How do they get away with this? This is why we don't have a real media. We have like this weird moment with them where they're like, I don't know what happened, and they're fine with that explanation.
Stood down from being Education Minister some months ago now for family, for health reasons, and to concentrate on my electorate, and that's exactly what I've been doing.
He's still being paid for that role. To keep in mind, he's still being paid for that role, and he wants to be re-elected to that role.
Are you looking to maintain the ministerialship, however, for the election?
Well, the Prime Minister has made clear that should we be re-elected and I'm in a position to step back up, then I'll do so.
And are you looking forward to this election? What do you think the outcome will be?
Well, it's very tight, but I'm confident that we can win.
Why have you been avoiding media questioning, and why have you refused to debate the Labor Shadow Education Minister, Tanya Plibersek?
Well, Stuart Robert is the acting Education Minister at the moment since I've been stood down, so he'd be the appropriate person to do that.
Oh, no. That's not how it works. You can't say, I'm up for re-election for the exact same job, and then go, oh, no, but Stuart Roberts is there at the moment, just place sitting. But you're still receiving the payroll for that role. It doesn't work like that. You can't do that. It is not just lying, it is flat out making sure the people aren't hearing from you at all. You didn't want the media to scrutinise you. You didn't want Tanya to go, hey, yeah, there's $500,000 missing from the coffers. Why? That would seem a little bit odd. It's not as if this is mid-investigation. By the time the payout happens, by the time this woman has received this money, for whatever happens, and I'm telling you, you don't just pay out this kind of money if nothing happened. This isn't like a sit down and be quiet. Something happened to this woman. But this is at the end of the investigation. So it's not as if it's like you got to keep mum on it because it's still an investigation. No, she's already been paid out $500,000. So he's lying, and now he wants to sit in a re-election for the same position and then say, oh, I didn't debate Tanya Plibersek because Stuart Roberts is place sitting for me right now. No, and there's no pushback from Sky, the only one that he spoke to.
So clearly Alan Tudge in hot water. You'd suspect that he would be avoiding the media for that reason alone, considering all the questions that we had for him, because we haven't heard from him during this election campaign, and it is crucial. It is a critical time. But as you heard from him just then, he is confident that Liberals will win.
Yeah, that overconfidence is because there is a media that is feeding off this party, that has been feasting off the suffering of other people. You have to remember, this isn't like a fly-by-night operation. No. They have meticulously, with a scalpel, cut things out and sliced it up and served it to the public as a consumable good. And they've made a well-edged sword media to do it. I don't think John Howard would have ever gotten the position that he did if social media existed. I don't think the LNP would have gotten the position that they were in if the media hadn't been so pro them. The LNP are really unelectable people. But don't take my word for it. Take theirs. Scott Morrison today, in this amazing launch that we paid for right up until today, with a week to go, with ads lying about Labor having a hole in a budget, which is a complete lie. Don't take my word for it. Take theirs. What was Scott's words today? But wait, I can change. Your leadership material, right? You can change. Do you know that abusers say that to their victims? But wait, I can change. No, we're done. The only thing that we want to change is the government. We are done dealing this with you. Alan Tudge, if you're going to hide behind the whole, I don't know what happened, at least do it with some credibility left to your name. This woman, I think there is a genuine merit to her claim. I have never ever known a payout that large to be on a nothing burger. That's just not how this works. And if you don't know that, I'm telling you, that's how it goes. They're at the end stages and they're doing it just before the election. So it tells you if they're paying this woman just before the election, that means this woman, ALP would have a way of getting these records if they paid her out after the election. There was a reason to fast track her payout. There's something to it. It smells rotten to its core. If you're not sus on that $500,000 payment, I'm telling you, you should be. But it's not just me calling it a rort. There are many, many people that are saying, hey, this is one of many rorts, and there's a bit of maths to play with on that. And here's where it gets super interesting. There are people that are meticulously taking note of just how damn awful it is. But I think the reason that we needed to take stock of this, and I'm not even sure if how meticulous everyone's been, whether we've seen everything. And I don't think we will until there's an ICAC. So, therefore, we need to change government. There's no other way around this. That what they've done is that we've, on the world ranking, we've lowered our credibility in corruption. I'm not kidding. I really wish I had pulled that up before I even brought it up. But it's true. Okay. Michael Pascoe admitted, I was lazy. I stopped counting politically rorted federal grant programs when it got to 1.1 billion. Now that's a lot of money when it already reached that epic point. But had we known that it would get to 8.1 billion, that's a total of 11 federal programs that have serious question marks or worse over their ethics and probability case of government. That's 8.1 billion of taxpayers' money at the disposal of politicians who can't be trusted not to use it for pork barrelling. Their way into government. It makes Clive Palmer's $83 million anti-Labor campaign look cheap. In fairness, not all of that 8.1 billion has been spent, and yet not all of it is rorted. But having watched the Morrison government so comprehensively raid the public purse, there's no reason to believe that the rest wouldn't. They would spend the rest more responsibly. Now that's a really good point. There's no evidence that the LNP will spend whatever is in that 8.1 billion in any sense of a responsible nature. Why? Because past behaviours play into what's happening now. Why? Because this is what they do. Now, if we had a fair and balanced media, this wouldn't be the point. And they wouldn't just be taking up news hawks like Sky News. If you notice that as much as they've filled the ABC with the ranks of their grossness, I have to tell you that they still won't go on it. So there has to be some truth to the idea that that the ABC isn't right-wing enough for them still yet. That's how I'm viewing it right now. You might have a difference of opinion. Now, when Australia is facing a potential financial crisis courtesy of the coronavirus, Scott Morrison is the only sloganeering about possible targeted modest scramble of financial assistance for the economy. Mr. Morrison's office, the Cabinet of Expenditure Review Committee and the Liberal Party campaign headquarters have proven to be adept at their targeted, scalable use of public money to get re-elected. But there was nothing modest about it. When I added up the total of a little 1.1 billion brought it in programs last month, I was only trying to make a point about inconsequential Liberal senators complain about the size of the ABC's annual budget, which is another thing. They attack ABC at its core. Then they fill it with weird LNP people, but they still don't feel comfortable in being scrutinised on it. As right-wing as they've made it, they still don't feel comfortable in going to the ABC. Take note, Albo was on Insiders today. We're going to discuss that later on in the program. But not only was Albo on Insiders today, but he's done regular appearances on ABC. He even did a Ray Hadley show, which was pretty repugnant of Ray Hadley, because he was like a little attack dog and he was just rabid out of his freaking mind. And that's why he stopped. But the Rawton rackets kept rolling in over the past week or so, demanding full accounting. The score so far is 102.5 million for the infamous community sports infrastructure. That's the Sports Broads program where it was like the colour-coded thing so they could try and win in the last election. $150 million for the coalition spectacular swimming pool in North Sydney that was meant for regional seats. 272 million for regional growth fund, most of which was dished out in the hurry just before the election. No prize for guessing which colour electorates got the overwhelmingly pocketed money. 841.6 million for the Building Better Regions Fund. The loot is spread over 4 years, so I erred on the side of caution the first time around in only counting the election splurge, but we all know better now. 200 million in government advertising the lead up to the election. Now 200 million in government advertising. Whoa, like a re-elect me kind of thing. I want to know what these ads and stuff that they've had on YouTube and loads of other places have costed us. See, I knew the moment Labor was like doing their launch on May 1 and then LNP doing their launch today. There was a definite reason for that, and I will not be convinced otherwise. We paid for it right up until today. $2 billion for the ironically named Climate Solutions Fund. The poorly administered handout for the favoured few is dubious. Worth to begin with, it runs out in 10 years, so I originally counted only 1 year's worth. But the spirit of rorting, what the hell, throw the lot in. $4 billion for the Urban Congestion Fund, incorporating 500 million. Oh yeah, this is the car park rort. This is like unimaginable rorting. This is the sort of stuff that we're going to need to keep discussing as the election comes around. 300 million for the drought communities program. Oh, this is like that water program where we don't know, there was water board and a 900-word text that does not exist. Thank you, Mr. Barnaby Joyce. 900-word texts do not exist. Bam, gotcha. Why would you send it via text anyway, dude? What kind of government official sends over text? a 900-word report. Even if you could do it like that, what kind of lazy guy gets paid extra money for this particular committee only to do it via text? It's lazy at best. 200 million on the regional jobs and investment package. Ministers rejecting 28% of the recommended application and approving 17% without the recommendation. Of course. 22.65 million for the Stronger Community Program and 22.65 million for the Communities Environment Program. These last two don't discriminate. MPs of all stripes got to play with taxpayers' funds here. 150,000 for each program in each 151 electorates. Your local MP to invite and endorse applications, the sort of structural corruption perhaps you would expect in their wider parts of Papua New Guinea and political system. Yeah. Yep. Fair call. The 8,000 for Sailing Club barbecue in Scott Morrison's electorate as a good example of any federal politician's local big noting with taxpayer funds. It's tacky and it stinks and it's not what the federal government should be doing. No. And that's just one of many. And that's where we're at. We're mucking around with the semantics of this. But for real, that's where we're at. And it's gross. And it doesn't have the moment that it should. And to underpin Michael Pascoe's point, we do not have what we should from this government. There's no accountability, there's no oversight, and many of the projects were not approved for what they said. There was, the car parks were all particular. It was with car parks that were for non-existent railway system. It's repugnant. It didn't pass a sniff test. But here's another story that I thought you would like. Want to know more about Albo? Here's 38 seconds more.
The federal government provided a $20 million incentive to the Northern Territory government of the Country Liberal Party to sell the Port of Darwin to a company, to a company connected with the Chinese Communist Party government in Beijing. Mr. Morrison, during the debate on Channel 9, said that it was nothing to do with the federal government. He clearly misled or forgot at that time, and he should explain why it is that the federal government provided that $20 million incentive. Thanks very much.
So not only did he get rid of the Port of Darwin to the Chinese, but he did something even worse. He tried to sell it to him with $20 million bonus of some sort. No oversight, no understanding of what really happened here, which is dodgy at best. Another rort. Now we need to know where that $20 million went and how many of his buddies got their little hands on it. Because that doesn't pass a sniff test for me. Why did they need $20 million? And how much did they get in for this selling? There's a lot of unanswered questions about that particular deal. And that's what really concerns me about this. Alright, I need to do that one again because there was a second one that I meant to do for that. Okay, here we go. Nope, I thought that was more than just that. There we go.
It had nothing to do.
Yeah, no, I thought that there was a second one for that. No, there's not, and I was wrong. Okay, so there is a part on the former High Commissioner. Now, I'm not sure whether you have seen this footage, but this happened, and I think it's a sad moment when we see stuff like this happening, because it's a sign that they're not accountable to anyone. Hold on, I just gotta find it. Here we go.
Is the Communist candidate for Australia? I'm going to ask her.
Excuse me, you are going to have to let. This is the most offensive thing I've ever seen in a campaign.
Excuse me.
This is
You don't tell the Supreme Leader what to do.
That wasn't the one, but I had. This one, that's what it was supposed to be, and it went to the wrong one. Okay.
This is a public space, I think.
That's all right.
I beg your pardon, don't touch me. This is a public space.
It's a public space.
Yes, no, thank you. No.
Stop trying to cost me.
Thank you very much.
He's just a member of the public space.
I would like to express that view. These miners are terrible. Okay, few cameras. I was High Commissioner of the Solomon Islands for 4 years. When I was in Foreign Affairs, I was one of the initiators of our policy of strategic demand. We have lost the plot in the South Pacific, and given that I've got a degree of experience, I think I know what I'm talking about. So that's what I want to say. The Prime Minister's party has lost my vote. I'm from the electorate of Bass, and because of the way in which they have totally mishandled our strategic interests, national strategic interests, I'm no longer voting for the Liberal Party.
The Prime Minister has avoided questions around this particular snub. I have asked the PM's office for a response as to why they thought it was appropriate to treat the former High Commissioner to the Solomon Islands like that. No, of course they're not going to respond. They haven't responded to media outlets, big ones that are asking questions on this. It was almost like he didn't want to hear from anyone that was slightly saying you did something wrong here. And now he's going to lose voters for it. And this was a nosedive to his campaign. If he thought his launch today was going to make him a monumental moment, no, it didn't. And it didn't work. But, I mean, here's the deal. They're grifters and they know it, and they're losing by the second. They do not have the ability to look the people in the eye and say, I did this and I made this mistake. Have you noticed that they never fully apologise? They're late on the vaccine. They don't apologise. They don't turn up to bushfire responses properly. They don't apologise. There is a flood going on in Queensland. Flooding. And they thought that they would launch in Queensland. Yeah, it's repugnant to its core. I speak to Queenslanders about this sort of stuff. I don't know how at times it's been conservative. It's a weird thing because we do have a ALP government, a wonderful ALP government. I'm hoping this election it'll be different and we'll be rid of Scott Morrison. That's the end goal here. That's what I want you to know that I took away from that moment. But there's more. So what happened with Tim Wilson? They were stupid enough to announce yet again about superannuation to tap into your home. Because why? Because tapping into your home means they wanted to tap into your super to get your first home. Now, many younger people won't be able to do this because there isn't enough in their super, for one. For two, wages haven't risen enough to be dipping into anything. Three, women always have had a lower superannuation amount. Why? Because typically, by population, who stays home when they want them to have the kids? That means less superannuation. So you're excluding like every policy that they make is stupid. But this has been floated before and knocked back in some monumental ways. But watch when they're actually being shown what I mean. It's amazing to watch what they do. Okay, so...
The latest modelling that I've seen from Industry Superannuation Australia, it's independent modelling, and the assumptions are all out there. The government decries it because they don't like the answers. It'd see, if we saw this policy adopted, if the government was loony enough to adopt this idea from their nutty backbenchers trying to get their names in the paper, it'd be an 8 to 16% increase in the median house prices in the 5 biggest capital cities. Joe Hockey even floated this idea back in 2015. Within a couple of days, it ruled it out as a very dumb idea. As Matthias Cormann told him, as the Grattan Institute told him, as leading economists like Saul Eslake told him. And the facts haven't changed, but it's come back because we have attention-seeking Liberal backbenchers like the member for Goldstein. He's got a great advantage in this place, you must admit. He does, over most of us. It's not his great intellect. It's not his extroverted nature. A few of us have that. Certainly not his judgment. It's not his respect for Parliament after he was found misusing parliamentary committees last term. It's that he has no shame. He has no shame in prosecuting any idea that will get him in the newspaper. But he's pushing a stupid idea, desperately hoping someone will make him a minister. There might be some vacancies soon. But the great nonsense, the untruth, is the lie that super would make it easier to get a home. Now, I do accept that he's interested in increasing home ownership. But the Liberal MPs pushing this idea should be honest. The only people who benefit are homeowners. Now, he and his husband, between them, own 5 properties. It's on his parliamentary declaration. He'd stand to benefit from this policy, but first home buyers would not. You don't make housing more affordable by making it more expensive. It is a ridiculous policy to pour more cash into people's pockets as house prices are already rising, petrol on the fire. It's also bad for taxpayers. The early withdrawal would see billions of dollars more on the pension. To his credit, the Treasurer said no to the member for Goldstein's request for an inquiry, but he needs to go the whole hog and rule this out. Rule it out now and go and find a real answer for housing affordability, not fake promises to young people.
Okay, that's an indication that this new brain fart of an idea to tap into your super to get a home is bad. And it's been floated back when Joe Hockey was part of government. So they don't have any new ideas, they just revamp the old ones. And that's part of how this government creates policy. Do you think the very first time you heard of the GST it was in? No, they tried and they means test people and then they take them into little rooms and then they focus group them to make it sound palatable to you. And that's exactly what they're trying to do. They're trying to create enough stresses in your life to make this sound palatable. Why? Because Tim Wilson was under investigation for messing with people's superannuation and misusing parliamentary committees. See, it wasn't bad enough that he was already under investigation, but he took a second bite of the apple. They just sort of can't help themselves because this is just what they do. I'm not shocked anymore by it. But these people always do this. But in a way, their whole families are like this. Don't believe me? Check this out. So, you think that it's just Scott Morrison that's a terrible human? I'm about to show you no. Okay.
For effective relief from cold and flu symptoms.
We're going to go into the whole ad things again. This is Scott Morrison's nephew. He has ripped people off and avoided jail in doing so. It's repugnant and I think that he should be in a lot of
investigation.
trouble. Okay, here we go.
He's been the subject of a long-running investigation on this program, and now the dodgy building work of the Prime Minister's nephew has caught up with him. A magistrate today brought it to an end, threatening Mitchell Cole with jail time.
invitation to the lodge this year. Why are you running away, Mitch?
Mitchell, do you want to see the record straight?
Haven't you got anything to say?
They say you can choose your friends, but not your family. And the PM may well regret this Chrissy happy snap.
Mitchell, do you think you'll be getting an invite for Christmas lunch this year?
ScoMo's nephew, Mitchell Cole, isn't a fan of our cameras.
Just want to have a chat to you. Tell us about the photos.
In fact, like Forrest Gump, Mitch has never stopped running. From us, his victims, and even at one point, the law, when it came to his dodgy building jobs.
Mitchell Cole, good of you to turn up to court today, sir.
He's taken our dreams and turned them into a nightmare.
But after 2 years, everyone and everything is catching up with Mitchell Cole.
Are you name-dropping ScoMo today, Mitchell?
He deserves to go to jail, and I hope for everybody's sake that there's a door closed for everybody that he's burnt along the way.
James McCall has been waiting for this day.
The relationship with Scott Morrison that he clearly has told everybody, I thought he'd get away with it, to be honest with you.
The father of three paid Cole $33,000 and says he then spent another $25,000 fixing the damage.
He's made as much money out of us as possible and moved on to the next victim.
And how was your yard?
An absolute disgrace.
Even Uncle ScoMo felt bad, writing to James and his young family.
Not every day you get a letter from the Prime Minister.
No, we don't.
You said you're remorseful and you're sorry. Do you want to take this opportunity to apologise to Faye Voyartzis?
Birds get in, insects get in. Our backyard has been in this state ever since he started work.
Faye Voyartzis says she still can't afford to fix Cole's damage.
It's terrible to feel like you've been taken for a fool like this just because you're trusting. And you wouldn't expect people to do these kinds of things.
The magistrate agreed.
Mitchell, no jail. You must feel like the luckiest man in the world right now.
Mitchell Cole will serve a 2-year community corrections order. He was fined $26,000. After today, there'll be no Christmas lunch at Kirribilli. Instead, jail if he slips up again.
All those fines, are you going to be able to afford for Secret Santa this year at the PM's place? Mitchell Cole's case went as badly as his building jobs. The third-time offender even tried to argue the shame of being outed by us, a current affair, was punishment enough, but the magistrate wouldn't have a bar of it.
He's a complete liar.
Peter Flanagan says he was also a victim of Cole's work and is still waiting to be compensated.
Just absolute bastard. He ripped us off. He's an absolute for doing it.
Name-dropping the PM might work in the building world, but not in the court of law. And let's hope it's Cole's famous uncle who convinces him to pay his victims back.
I know you blamed a current affair and you don't like us very much, but why don't we make a deal that we won't have to put a camera in your face if you do the right thing, pay them back and never do this again.
On top of the fine and 200 hours of community service, Cole's also been ordered to pay more than $30,000 in compensation.
It wasn't enough, and it will never be enough for these people. And why? Because what he did was so terrible. He ruined people's homes, life savings. He took it all. But he didn't just take it a little bit. He took everything. These people can't fix this. But once again, you gotta ask yourself why. Why is this able to be done? Why would, like when Brian Houston was just sent out into the wilderness, he could go overseas. Or when George Pell was just mysteriously let go. It's all a little bit weird. The people around the Prime Minister that are crimey seem to go somewhere. Just like Clive Palmer's nephew, he's gone off somewhere with the money of the issue of the nickel refinery. The LNP and the UAP happen to be very, very, very dodgy. And this is how they operate. They don't care about the facts. They don't care about who it hurts. They just want to do it. But I'm not shocked. And I'm tired of hearing the promises that they're going to make to change. They don't change. They don't get better as people. They continue to be this dodgy for a reason. Now, I would submit to you that that's the worst, one of the worst things I've ever seen. For a family member to be name dropping the Prime Minister, creating a litany of victims, you're fining him and not even sure if the victims are going to get anything. Won't be enough to cover what happened, ever. The gullible, though, who would believe anything in Scott Morrison's credibility? Okay. So, here's another weird moment. One moment, Scott Morrison was saying, both through losing weight and through his divorce, that people didn't know who he was and all that kind of stuff, and that he's changed so much and whatever. But in the same vein, he also promises to do that very thing. He wants a second term to prove that he has changed. Again, I invite you to see it like this. We don't need Scott Morrison to change. We need the government to change, because he isn't going to change at all.
We're in the Sydney seat of Reid in suburban Concord, home of the Wongal people, as the campaign enters its final desperate days. Unable to dent Labor's strong lead in the polls, the Prime Minister has dramatically switched his pitch. He's now promising to change if given another term in office. I'm David Spears. Welcome to Insiders. We're in the Sydney seat of Reid in suburban Concord, home of the Wongal people, as the campaign enters its final...
So, the promising of change, and that he said that he's a bulldozer, and he didn't think that people would be that upset with him. Really? Really? You didn't think 5 victims would be upset with you? You didn't think flood victims would be upset with you? You didn't think that people that died of COVID, their families wouldn't be upset with you because you didn't handle things right? See, when you monumentally screw up this bad, sorry just doesn't cut it, buddy. Not to me, and it shouldn't. But here's what intrigues me. This weird opinion that he thinks that changing is what we're after. Like him to change. No, we need the government to change. It's not just him. It's the whole party. It's all of the rorts. It's all of the scamming. It's all of the lying. And I'm really tired of the idea that they think that this is how you behave. It's not, and it's disgusting. So, without further ado, I need to show you a new moment of a LNP and LNP, UAP and the Liberals working together. What you are looking at there is evidence of that. Handing out Clive Palmer how to vote cards. So if you were lulled into this sense that Clive Palmer is all about not voting for the majors and everything else, and not helping Scott Morrison win next election, what is this shit? Not mucking around. What is this? That is a blatant lie. That's what that is. And not even shocked that they pull stunts like this. This is just part of their MO now. This is what we're doing. But I've always told people, you have Craig Kelly running around saying, I'm running for Prime Minister as well. And that they're going to get 3% interest rates down to 3%, and the government will cover the rest. No detail on how much that would cost the economy or anything, just a claim. Because that's how they do things. They just make ridiculous claims. And that's just Clive Palmer for you. But next I'm going to show you a lie so big, even 7 years was like, hey, yeah, you might not want to go whole hog on this one. And the reason for this is because it was too big to even stop at. Watch how crazy this is.
The Prime Minister accusing Labor of having always been weak on China, claiming Labor pulled out of the so-called Quad with the US, Japan and India to appease Beijing.
It was Kevin Rudd who put an end to that at the behest of the Chinese government.
But it wasn't. It was actually John Howard's then Defence Minister Brendan Nelson, and here he is doing it.
I have also reassured China that so-called quadrilateral dialogue with India is not something that we are pursuing.
So that was their promise. That was their saying of, well, ALP had done it, and it was very quickly where 7 years was like, no, that's too big of a lie for us. Even we have to call it out. That was such a big lie. But for more fun stuff, I'm going to show you a Gladys Liu endorsement. This is funny. I'm telling you, you'll get comedy gold out of this one.
Here's the Communist candidate for Australia. I'm going to ask her.
Excuse me, you are going to have to let. This is the most offensive thing I've ever seen in a campaign.
Excuse me, you don't tell the Supreme Leader what to do. I support Gladys Liu, she supports Xi Jinping, and now she's going to support the North Korean regime. So thank you very much, all for coming, for supporting this great candidate for the area.
Excuse me, who are you? What's your name? Can we get a name?
Supreme Leader, Kim Jong.
What's your actual name?
It's Supreme Leader, but I'm known by my alias, Howard X. Okay? However, you can call me Dear Leader. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Who are you, sir?
Are you a union member?
It's not good enough. I mean, who do you represent? Who are you?
I represent the DPRK, the Democratic.
Sir, that's not good enough. Just tell us.
All right, it is good enough. Who are you? Who are you?
I'm Stephen Evans. I'm a journalist. I'm asking you, who are you?
Okay, tell me your family, where they live, and the routes to work, to and from work, okay? And we'll get you taken care of.
Okay, I'll tell you if you tell us who you are.
Who I am? I'm Kim Jong. Come on, it's pretty obvious.
You're not.
Oh, okay.
You're a
I doubt it. I doubt that. Anyway.
So this is Gladys Liu has got a shady history. She last election was caught on a WeChat app misleading her Chinese supporters of ALP policy, and not just a little, she lied a lot. And there should be election laws around what Gladys Liu did. She also did receive a lot of money from the Chinese government. It is deemed a national security risk, the amount that they've gotten. But this idea that they've got some sort of way to sledge the ALP on it, when they're clearly more in bed with them than ever before, the LNP, with the Port of Darwin and then the issue of Newcastle as well. The Port of Newcastle, both have been handed over through successive LNP governments. It's easy to look up, it's just a fact. And then there's a $20 million part attached to that, to the one in the Port of Darwin. And they know. And there's no point in mucking around about that at all. But that's happening. Okay, the next one I want to go to. Have you seen this? When I seen it, I thought, oh my God. This is the guy running against ScoMo. His name is Simon Earl. And as he ate his burrito from Guzman and Gomez, wondered, is the PM leaving because of him? Now let me zoom in on said photo. For lease. Scott Morrison's office. Gonski. So we will see whether that means Scott Morrison thinks he's going to lose or not. It'll be interesting. Ugh. Okay. Next I've got this. This is what I mean. It's a pretty fast moving show tonight. Okay. Oh. Here we go. This was one of the funniest things I've ever seen. I need you to see this. Okay.
Welcome back to The Pork is Right, where taxpayers guess how much of their money the government has porked away, usually to their mates, often without the proper tender process. Janice, you've locked in these porks. If they run from the least expensive to the most expensive, you win the prize. Let's do this. Light up number one. $30 million for the land near Western Sydney Airport. Very nice start, Janice. Very nice start. What's wrong, Janice?
Well, to be honest, I thought it'd be closer to $3 million.
They're hardly going to just pay market value, are they now, Janice? Let's move on, though. IT services next, Janice. Government contracts given to an IT consulting firm founded by Government Minister Stuart Robert. Do you know Stuart? Great fella. Do you feel confident after seeing the price of the land?
Really, I don't know, Mike.
Okay. Light it up, let's see. It's $37 million, Janice. Jumping ahead. Let's light up female change rooms. $150 million on female changing rooms, Janice.
Well, I guess this government has got a women problem.
But most of it went to swimming pools in coalition-held seats, Janice.
I think I'm going to vomit.
But not in the posh pools, Janice. Don't vomit in the posh pools. What about water, Janice?
Thanks. Yeah, I could really do with a glass.
Janice, I meant water entitlements. Will they be less than the posh pools, more expensive than the IT services, Janice?
I don't know, Mike.
Remember, they were independently valued at $1.4 million. But the money did go to a company co-founded by Energy Minister Angus Taylor, headquartered in the Cayman Islands.
Okay.
What is it going to be?
Just light it up, Mike.
Let's see it then. $80 million on water, Janice. And it's not even sparkling water. The champagne of waters. Okay, now, we're going to jump ahead again. Beach Shack. Let's see what it is. $423 million, Janice.
For Beach Shack? What is even going on here?
It's not just a beach shack, Janice. There is a company in the Kangaroo Island Beach Shack entrusted to provide security and housing to refugees on Manus Island. And we all know how well that turned out.
Can we stop, please? I really want this game to stop.
Come on, Janice, don't quit now. If you keep going, you might even win a brand new car park. A brand new car park. $660 million for 47 commuter car parks nobody even asked for. 3/4 of them in coalition-held seats. They may never get built, Janice, but if they do, they will cost a lot of pork. So close to the end now, Janice. Will you risk it all, Janice? Or will you walk away right now with this envelope stashed with cash?
Where did that come from?
A blind trust.
If it means this game will end?
Don't you want to see if the carbon capture storage is in the right spot?
Honestly?
Whoa! Hands off, Janice! Of course the carbon capture storage isn't in the right spot. The right spot for carbon is wherever it was before it was dug up. This technology hasn't even been proven to work at a commercial scale, Janice. But how much money did the government waste on it? Let's light it up! $263 million. Imagine if they spent that money on renewables, Janice. Okay, final hurdle. As long as the money handed over to Hello World Travel is more than $660 million, you will win the grand prize. But remember this, their CEO was the Liberal Party treasurer, and they donated $200,000 during the tender process.
I really don't care anymore.
Oh, come on, Janice. Cheer up. Let's light it up.
What the?
Janice, You have won the big prize! Congratulations!
What have I won? A trip?
Oh no, Janice, but you will want to get away somewhere because it's 3 more years of coalition rorts. And also, Australia has slipped 7 places on Transparency International's Corruption Index, which now means we are more corrupt than Estonia. Good on you, Australia. Well done. Oh, it's gone again. Not in the posh pools, Janice. Good night, everyone. Join us again on The Pork is Right.
That, to me, encapsulates, I think, how the nation is feeling with it. But I think that it's a sign, too, that we can make comedy out of even the most extreme things. Out of all the pork rorts and everything else, pork barrelling that's been done, I think it's a fair call to say they've got a lot of money. Taxpayer money in car parks and things that will never ever be built. Paying $30 million for $3 million worth of land. How do you justify that? On what level do you go, no, you've gone too far this time? But next up we have Piers Morgan. I don't know if you know who he is, but he is a British guy that works for Rupert Murdoch. Okay. So it turns out that Rupert Murdoch is struggling to get an audience. Why? Well, because it might be that they went a little bit overboard in their love fest of conservative ideals. See, they were always a little bit leaning towards them, but I would say in the last 10 years that they took it too far. And mucking around with democracy is never a good idea. So, people fought back and stopped watching. So, Rupert Murdoch's Talk TV television channel has been rated having 0 viewers during prime time broadcast, as the new television channel struggles to attract an audience despite signing up Piers Morgan as a presenter. The new desk channel, hour-long political show hosted by Tom Newton Dunn, did not register a single viewer for half of its Tuesday evening broadcast, although this does not rule out the possibility that some people were watching somewhere in the UK. It means that the television audience was so small it was not picked up by an official rating agency, the Broadcasters Audience Research Board. The audience for Morgan's flagship 8 p.m. evening show also collapsed from an average 317,000 views on its launch night of 62,000 views. A week later, a fall of 80%. Morgan tweeted gleefully about the first night's television ratings. Now he insists he does not care about such figures. He told social media followers that television ratings should be ignored. A linear for which increasingly irrelevant eyeball potential for global show like this, especially with the younger viewers who don't really watch TV anymore. Loads of people would still engage with regular TV if Rupert Murdoch didn't dominate it the way that he did. There was definitely going to be a shift in numbers, but I think what Rupert Murdoch did expedited the process. No doubt in my mind about that. But this is now up for contention. News UK had claimed that the clips from Morgan's show attracted 64 million views on social media platforms and news websites during its first week on air, and had an interview with the former US president. However, the methodology behind this claim is unclear. In recent episodes, the show's Morgan's YouTube channel are attracting around 10,000 viewers. Trump himself has now weighed in on the Talk TV's performance. Ratings of Piers Morgan interview with me were great. Unfortunately, after that interview, his show bombed, and I bombed completely because of the fake narrative he tried to portray. The fact is, I got a new close-up glimpse at Piers Morgan no longer has what it takes. It's all over for him. I don't think Trump realises the term irony, that he's not getting the crowd anymore either. And I think it's weird that they went to Trump for an opinion on Piers Morgan. And I mean, his weird attacks on Meghan Markle and numerous other celebrities is just another sign that he's so out of touch. Despite an enormous advertising campaign, Talk TV has been considerably beaten ratings by fellow upstart television GB News. That the channel was initially mocked for its pitifully low viewing figures before gradually rebuilding an audience by promoting Nigel Farage. Full-blooded culture war discussion. In other words, they found something that the people liked. You know, the hairy-chested beating man that says things like brown people are going to do bad things. That's what they basically did. Nigel Farage, who made Brexit a really big talking topic in homes. If you don't know who he is, find out, because he is the sort of guy who, the moment Brexit became real, he resigned from government and had his tail between his legs and continuously attacked Theresa May afterwards for trying to clean up talks. Not that I defend Theresa May, she is as bad as the rest, but he is the axe-wielding guy behind Brexit. The Talk TV ratings are a challenge for News UK Chief Executive Rebecca Brooks, the lady who headed the newspaper that hacked the dead little girl's phone, who was in the need of a hit after sinking tens of millions of pounds into the project. She publicly dismissed the business case for a new broadcast television news channel, not for commercially viable, before reversing course after Murdoch signed up to Morgan on a reported $50 million 3-year deal. The audience for the Talk TV's nightly discussion program, hosted Sharon Osbourne, has also dipped as low as 10,000 views. Osbourne hosted only 3 nights of the program before announcing she was flying home to Los Angeles to be with her ill husband, Ozzy Osbourne. She has since appeared on a show via video link with Jeremy Kyle, also another talk show host guy that really wasn't worth much. The Who's Your Daddy DNA things. On Wednesday, Morgan said nightly programs were still performing well in the ratings and compared to other news channels. Amazing achievement for a brand new show on a brand new network. Lots to do, but very encouraging. No, it isn't, and that's the point. It's not very encouraging. But what I'm about to show you is how quickly things can go south for Paul Murray. Now, if you thought that he was like this guy that was control and, you know, knew what they were talking about, and a whole, you know, like they were around the whole spectrum of debate on Sky, I'm about to show you a whole new version of Paul Murray. He is as repugnant as it gets.
Oliver, make sure you're in front of the mic, please.
This is what it's turned into.
A Sheila with a penis swam faster than a bunch of women without a penis, who has a girlfriend with a vagina, but he is a lesbian. Welcome to 2022, people. Welcome to 2022. That's their game, that's the way that they play. And again, what about Wayne Swan the other day? Screaming and moaning because, of course, the press has been too mean to Albo. Too mean to Albo. So what do you think's going to happen to a show like mine and a station like ours and views like yours if they end up in charge? That's why it matters. It's not just any old election. We heard about how Mark McGowan has a poodle-like fucking Albo. We got the mean girl Penny Wong pretending to be nice and still looking like a mean girl. We got
See how he gets so agitated, and now he's actively telling people how to vote? See, this is pure desperation. This is a sign Scott Morrison was in big trouble when you got Paul Murray freaking out like this and saying transphobic things.
Albo promising to own 40% of people's houses. How good's that idea? Albo ban. Fair dinkum. But they didn't talk about China. Now you know and I know what the states are and why China matters, what China means. I'll say it in the editorial, but I mean it as well.
Yeah, we'll just say a whole bunch of racist things, call ourselves the real Aussie bloke, and that's how we're going to portray this. It's gross.
You heard me talk about the preferences. Like obviously in this election, there are some people who voted for the LNP in 2019 last time, who say they don't want to do it this time, but preferences matter. So if you've got one of those mates, in my view, my editorial, that are saying, no, I'll put them all last, they're going to get Albo. That's how it works. You're not going to get the Palmer Party as the government, you're not going to get One Nation as the government. You might get something in the Senate, and you know my views about taking out some insurance against governments in the Senate, and I'm fine with that. But mucking around in the lower house is going to result with Albo as Prime Minister, especially when your job, when it comes to talking to family and all the rest of it, is we've got to build a buffer against the woke in Victoria. We've got to build a buffer.
Yeah, you got to throw in a couple of woke comments and make it sound like you're on all the lingo of how they're doing this. Let me tell you, no one talks like this. No one. Only an outdated Sky News representative does this. It's grotesque. If you want to be transphobic, do it on your own time. Don't do it with a Rupert Murdoch entity behind you. It's gross.
Buffer against the Teals in Sydney. We've got to build a buffer against the bullshit that might be playing in places like Western Australia. That's our job, to get that going as hard as possible, and to try to make sure that, I don't believe Queensland's returning. What do you guys think? No way? Now, obviously, so tonight the way that it'll work is I'll just give you my little 20 minutes at the start, where, Albo's wage rise, which of course will do nothing to inflation.
Yeah, because he's an economist and understands how it works. Mr. Murray, where did you study economics? Oh, better question. Do you know how any of Labor's policies work? Oh, even better one. When did you become part of the political LNP campaign? If you're telling people to vote for Scott Morrison, you're officially part of his campaign. Just putting it out there. If you are part of the Rupert Murdoch entity and you're on Paul Murray Live, underneath Rupert Murdoch, you are endorsing a Prime Minister, which means you should be declared as, wait for it, a part of the LNP team. Dunzo.
I'll fire up about that. Mr. Dutton will come out, I'll ask him one question, then we'll go to our pre-described questions. He doesn't know what they are. But obviously, being a room full of people that watch our show, pretty know where all of those questions are going to be. We'll do some selfies and all the rest of it at the end, but I'm really pleased that you're here. Now, obviously, I always like to do a little survey around the country about our guests, about which ones you like and don't like. Do we like Robin Bishop on the show? Yes. Do we like Mark Latham on the show? Yes. Do we like Nicholas Rees on the show? Yes! Finally! I couldn't believe when we... Correct, exactly. He's like that blow-up clown doll. Bang, wood, bang. Every time. He thinks he's doing God's work, anyway. Stephen Conroy, big fans of him? No. Yeah, all right. Who else do we like? Who else do we like on the show? You like Gary? You like Gary? Yeah, come on, Gary. Michael Kroger, how good's Kroger? Oh, Matt Carnarvon. As you said, Christopher, of course. Come on, Palaszczuk, people, what's going on? Honestly. Like, as I said before the election, I repeat now, flush, get the domestos and flush again when it comes to that mob. Now, how long have I got here before I... Cool. All right. So, yeah,
So that's him trying to sway voters. He should have no role in any of it. this is the part that gets me the most. Have you heard about how Mark McGowan has a poodle fucking elbow? Oh yeah, but they're of integrity, right? That's such an integrity part of what they're pulling off. This is gross. And then they accuse Labor of being like this mean girl entity and all that other stuff. It's all bullcrap, and they know it. So here's another rort that I found, and it's an awful one. So the French people knew about some of the stuff that Scott Morrison was up to, and they called him on it. Okay, watch this. France had Scott Morrison's mate David Gazzard on their payroll for the $90 million submarine scam. Has Morrison pulled off one of the biggest stings ever? The submarine contract with France have a long history of bribing other countries for defence contracts. Was always a major scam that blew out from $50 billion to $90 billion in a couple of years, with millions flowing into the hands of the Liberal Party cronies. France openly had several Liberal Party cronies on their payroll, including Scott Morrison's friends, David Gazzard and Peter Costello, because of course, you know, Peter Costello can't just be on the board of Channel 9. No. Got to be in on all the scams. I'm really concerned about the sort of job that Scott Morrison will have when he's done here. You should be too. With the most major frauds in the case, the following money has been found the truth and the matter since 2016 and a number of articles. Scott Morrison's announcement of the Clayton's deal in the US and the UK for nuclear submarines achieves nothing, but has shone a light on the original scam further, as there has only been an agreement with the US and possibly to come out of the agreement of the future, which was a joke. Not worth a choreographed announcement between Morrison, Joe Biden, Boris Johnson, and all that happened. So watch what they did. Hold on.
Morrison is telling us that in return for getting the capability to have nuclear propulsion, now we're not talking about nuclear weapons, just nuclear propulsion, for a design of submarine yet to be determined.
And the reason that's better is for stealth reasons. It's quieter, like...
Well, actually, it's not. Actually, it's not quieter.
Oh.
The diesel subs that Australia currently has and the ones it was planning to get are actually quieter because you can turn off the engine completely and they go absolutely silent. With a nuclear unit, you can't switch it off completely. It has to. The nuclear plant has to keep running. So the advantages with a nuclear nuclear boat are, like Morrison was saying, they can go faster underwater, they can stay underwater much longer, they can stay on station much longer and carry larger loads. But the trade-off that Morrison is now telling us Australia's going to have to accept is that, you know, yesterday Australia had a contract to buy 12 submarines built in Adelaide on a French design. Today, Australia has no contract for anybody to supply us any submarines whatsoever. We have a high-level political agreement to supply us with US-UK nuclear propulsion technology, but we have no contract, no boat in which to put this thing. So the Morrison government tells us today that we're going to have to wait longer now. So until today, it was going to be more than a decade to get the first new sub. Now it's going to be even longer than more than a decade, possibly up to 2 decades to get the first new sub.
Could be 2040 is what we're told,
Yeah. Second, it's going to cost more, the government tells us. Third, that they've committed, conceptually at least, to buying only 8, whereas the previous deal was to buy 12 submarines. They're saying, oh, well, they're more capable, so you don't need as many. But we're going to have to wait longer. The Collins-class submarines, which were supposed to be retired in 2025, they keep postponing their retirement. I hope my retirement doesn't get postponed as many times as these poor labouring subs. They're going to be in the water till 2040 and beyond. So, you know, we're going to have no new subs, pay more, There's no design. The only thing the government has actually specifically done today is said that it is creating an interdepartmental task force to find, quote, the optimal path to getting Australia to acquire the nuclear technology, which could then lead to a design and a negotiation for a contract. This is, this is a great theatrical production we saw this morning. You know, hats off. That was high value theatrics, but behind the theatrics, behind the curtains, there's just a couple of step ladders and a bunch of bureaucrats at a meeting table, and that's about it.
So that's where we're at. That's what we're dealing with, and they're going to keep lying about it. That's what the subs deal is. It's essentially a scam. And they put all their friends on this board, walked away with the money, and then said, oh, guess what? No subs. My guess is that there was never any plans for any subs, and I don't think that there is a new agreement with anyone. But that's, yeah, neither here nor there now. I don't know what's going to happen. But it's more of a dumpster fire than anything I've ever seen. So this is more of that sort of feel of how they've behaved around that.
I rise today to talk about some of the reasons that we need to vote the Morrison government out.
Drought reports and Watergate, I don't hold a hose, mate. Scotty shouting she can go at Postal CEO. Forced handshakes of fire victims, Lion Cow and Brittany Higgins. As a father, widowed mother, that no check video. What a secret donation, COVID misinformation. Cormann got a jet for free, funding cuts for ABC. Slow to order vaccine, shirked on federal quarantine. Legislating bigotry, Bill O'Willer family.
Jeez, it's a dumpster fire. He was always hopeless, but he tricked the voters. Please, let's get Scotty fired. We should aim much higher than a rotten liar.
Stuart Robert Internet, question still not answered yet. March for Justice women, lucky no one got shot. Millions on a dud app, still no federal ICAC. Universities lost 40,000 jobs. Stranded Aussies, Scotty ridiculed EVs. Overpriced airport lands, creepy laying on of hands. Visas for au pairs, Afghan workers, who cares? Birthing lanes, leaking texts, and the Ruby Princess.
Jeez, it's a dumpster fire. He was always hopeless, but he tricked the voters. Please, let's get Scotty fired. And with elbow higher, we would be inspired.
Shocking age, care neglect, sign agreements then renege. Sports, roads, pork and ride, whistleblowers put on trial. Notion null, bushfire fund, pledging billions, spending none. Robo debt, suicides, FOI requests denied. Whiteboard senator, cash tipped off the media. Pamphlet in Glasgow, reef protection no-go. Gaslit recovery, 40 billion bucks for free. Train wreck, shit show, LNP have got to go.
Jeez, it's a dumpster fire. And it keeps on growing with no sign of slowing. Please, let's get Scotty fired. Cause till he is gone, we will still rot on and on and on and on and on.
That is made by someone super creative. I would say that they
I rise today to talk about
that. They fully do need the credit for that particular animation. Someone actually sung that out. I think it's a sign that people have gotten really damn creative this election, and they've had enough. And rightfully so. Where are we as a nation if not frustrated with this current government? It hasn't showed any sign of accountability. It's not really heading towards something of a stability for anyone. Wages aren't up enough for the cost of living. And the cost of living is so out of control that there is now an app that you can download where you can get into debt for buying milk and bread. Really, that's the sort of nation that we're heading towards. I don't think it's a sign that we're just too far down a rabbit hole now. We've given this LNP government too many leeways to get this right. So Scott Morrison can promise he can change, and he can do the old "I'm a bulldozer and I didn't mean to hurt your feelings." But no, it's just easy to change the government. To me, that seems to me the most logical thing to really go with. But I think this is the interview that I think it really sold it for me today. Okay, here we go. Take a good listen to how this one went down. Just give me a second. I just need to make sure all my ducks in a row as I play this.
Anthony Albanese, our first guest this morning, who joins us live from Brisbane. Anthony Albanese, welcome to the program.
Good morning, David. Thanks for having me on the program. It's good to have a political leader appearing on the ABC.
Okay, indeed it is. I won't disagree. Now, I want to start on this wages debate. You said you absolutely support a 5.1% increase in the minimum wage. So just clear this up for us. Will you put a submission to the Fair Work Commission asking for a 5.1% increase?
We will put a submission to the Fair Work Commission. They'll take submissions until June the 7th, and that submission will say that people who are on the minimum wage can't afford to go backwards. Let's see what we're talking about here, David. We are talking about a $1 a week increase for people who earn $20.33 an hour. And they're the heroes of the pandemic. They're cleaners. They're people who kept the economy going. We can't just say thank you and take a real wage cut. So there's a very clear divide here. A government that says that low wage growth was a key feature of their economic architecture, and Labor that says that we want an economy that works for people, not the other way around, and that people who are on minimum wages are doing it tough. The cost of everything is going up, but their wages aren't. We've had real wage cuts across the economy over the last year. We've had wage stagnation for a decade under this government, and any productivity growth, as low as it has been, has gone to the profit share, not to wages.
So that's a really good point to start pausing on. That is part of the point. And Scott Morrison thought he was insulting Labor, Albo, for calling him a loose unit. Here's the thing, he didn't know it was cool. This is where Scott Morrison shoots himself in the foot repeatedly. So if Scott Morrison wants to continue his whole diatribe on what he thinks real world Australians need, I would be taking note of what Albo's saying. It's resonating, and it's really, really making sure that people hear the message. I think that it's time that we didn't just listen to Albo though. We heard their whole team. Last week I played a clip of Jason Clare and a few others. Penny Wong last week we also heard from, and others, and I think that if we slowly hear from them all, we'll be impressed with every one of their performances.
Okay, now, and just to clear up, I think you said $1 a week, it's $1 an hour, as you've also been pointing out this week. $1 an hour. But just to be clear on your submission, you won't actually have a specific figure for the sort of minimum wage rise you want to see?
No, well, the Fair Work Commission will make a decision independent of government. But what we've clearly said is that people who are on the minimum wage can't afford to go backwards. And if the Fair Work Commission make a decision in line with that rate, then that is something that we would welcome.
Do you think small business can afford it, a 5.1% increase?
Do you think that people who are struggling to get by on $20...
Catch the gotcha. I'm going to go back a little. Did you catch the gotcha? Do you think people can afford it? Like the businesses? Dude, we're talking about if people can afford to eat. And he's like, do you think the small businesses can afford the $1 an hour extra? It's David Spears. It was a weird gotcha that he thought he got elbow on.
Do you think that people who are struggling to get by on $20.33 an hour can afford to have their real wages cut? That's the issue here, David. That's the issue. And a government that is so out of touch. This is a government that poured $70 billion of additional spending into the economy between the December mid-year economic forecast and the budget in March, and then poured additional money in as well. Why did we support that $250 payment? Why did we support the changes to petrol excise and to the low and middle income tax offset? Because people are doing it really tough. But people who are on the minimum wage are doing it so tough. During this campaign, David, one of the doorstops that I did was at Addy Road Community Centre where food hampers are being prepared. They used to be prepared for people who are homeless, people who really were doing it tough. Now they're being prepared for the working poor. We need to recognise that people are doing it tough. We need to acknowledge it, and we need to not leave people behind.
See, isn't that a bit of a weird position where Albo's saying, hey, yeah, no, this is the same reason that they attacked penalty rates is, small businesses would struggle. But did they? No. If you are a small business and you're concerned about paying penalty rates, I'll put it to you like this. I would be more concerned with the person giving up their time to come in and work for you during that weekend. You've totally lost the credibility in the argument when you make it about the business and not about the worker. The business model as a front should be able to withstand paying someone a normal wage, a livable wage. You know, the thing that we kept promising the country we would do. And I think it's a weird position that David Spears put him in. It was designed for us. See, I gotcha. And that's part of the dishonesty about this. I'm not shocked that they still pull stunts like this. At least this time David Spears didn't do his normal, I'm just going to interrupt you there, mate. I'm just going to make sure that I cut you off. I think he got a bit in trouble for that. And even Tanya was like, no, don't want to interrupt you. So I think it costed him a bit.
As you mentioned, it's up to the Fair Work Commission to make a decision here. Something you can directly control is public service pay. Do public servants also deserve a real wage increase?
Well, we will.
Second gotcha. We're going to discuss something else to try and get you. Because this is how they run it. They don't run it with any real gusto. What they do is they go, gotcha, I got you on that question. That's what makes what they're doing so disingenuous. Because you can see it for what it is. It's dishonest. If you're like, oh yeah, but what about all these other people? We're talking about something of substance. And David Spears has to go, no. I'm not done with the gotcha questions. And I think that that's the point. That was the whole reason that they put David Spears there and got rid of Barry Cassidy. I mean, I already had issues with insiders. You know, when they'd have that Gerard fellow and, you know, they would talk to Annabelle Crabb that was super close to Scott Morrison and others. But now they've turned it into the full-on LNP singing choir. It's repugnant at its core, but it's a sign that they don't understand where the people are at. They're done having the conversation about what's going to happen to other people. They want to know what's going to happen to them. And they want to know that the bare minimum of wages are going to be met. The bare minimum. And that's where we should be having the honest debate about it.
Negotiate in the usual way, public service awards. But one of the things that we will do, David, we've made very clear, is that we need to revitalise the public service. We need to stop the contracting out that's occurred, the use of labour hire, the gutting of the capacity of the public service, and that includes making sure that we can attract the best and brightest to the public service, and we will...
with a real wage rise?
Well, we're not arguing for a real wage rise for people on minimum wage rates. What we're arguing for is that they shouldn't go backwards, David.
See the gotcha, like real changes. See, he can't help himself. He has to do the LNP's job. And I don't think he quite understands. It's turning viewers away, or he doesn't care.
So we'll negotiate in good faith at the appropriate time as part of the award bargaining process.
Okay, so no commitment there to give them, give the public service a real wage rise to stop them going backwards.
No, a real wage rise isn't about, it means they're going forwards. What we will do over a period of time, David, do we want to lift living standards in Australia for working people? Yes, we do, David. Yes, we do. This government have had a conscious effort to put downward pressure on wages. They say it's a key feature of their economic architecture, and to be fair to them, they've delivered just that, real wage cuts. We say that people should be lifted up, that everyone should have a stake in the economy, and one of the things...
Real wage cuts. David Spears didn't want him to point that out. That's why he tried to start to interrupt him, because he realised where he was going with it. And, you know, David's like, no, I've got to play defence for him.
That I said in my speech to the Australian Chamber of Commerce and Industry is I want to bring unions and employers together around the bargaining table, including small business and their employees, to work in their common interest. I want to stop the division and the conflict fatigue that Australians have out there from a government that is always looking to divide. I want to bring people together.
The Prime Minister's today promising to extend incentives for empty nesters to downsize their home and put more money into super. Will you back this policy?
We will. This is a modest announcement to extend a downsizing program. We've supported that program up to now, but we support a comprehensive plan on housing. We need more investment in public and social housing through our Housing Australia Future Fund. We need to do more about emergency housing. Last night and tonight, like every night, women and children escaping domestic violence will be turned away from shelters. We need to, because there's not space, and they'll sleep in their car or couch surf, or worse still, go back to an unsafe situation. We need to do more in that area. We also have our Help to Buy scheme, which is about low and middle income earners getting a foot in the door of housing. I know through my own personal experience how important a secure roof over your head is. We want to make sure that Australians have every opportunity to do that. This suggestion by the government is a practical one. We'll support it, but we'll have much...
That's a sign that this is something that they're not really, the Liberal government aren't interested in really bringing the country forward. And it's disgusting at its core. I'm a little bit distracted. Someone keeps making a copyright claim on my videos and has linked themselves into it, and I have no idea why they're doing that. I'm not playing anything of theirs. They're like 30 seconds of that is theirs. No, it isn't. Everything I'm using has nothing to do with this E.L. Turner. Stop using my stuff. It's not yours.
More in our offer to the Australian people next Saturday.
All right, well, we haven't seen the details of what the Prime Minister is announcing today, certainly the costings of it yet, but you've backed it in. And I know that the government's been arguing, you know, we're yet to see any of the costings of your policies. Can I ask you in a general sense, I'm going
to pause this for a quick sec, and I'm going to do it afterwards, I suppose.
Have a lot of debt. It's heading past $1 trillion. Do you think we can handle more debt? Would you be okay? Will we see more debt under Labor or not?
We need to be fiscally responsible, which is why we've been very careful about our commitments. And I'll make two comments about that. One is we're prioritising investment in areas that grow productivity, that grow the economy. So areas like cheaper childcare, for example, for every dollar invested produces $2 return to the national economy, at least. Every economist argues that's the case. Productivity boosting infrastructure. The Prime Minister says he's a bulldozer. Well, that's a wrecker. I'm a builder. I want to build infrastructure, including making sure the national broadband network works effectively. I want to build the skills base of the country as well. Well, that's the way.
See, now they're trying to make it sound as if the debt is the issue and anything good that he might do should be counter-attacked. It's wrong. And it's disingenuous at its core. And they know it. It's wrong. And I don't know why they're doing that. It's something that shouldn't even be there. So to improve people's standard of living, they're going to talk about debt and deficit. Like, are you insane? Yeah, it shouldn't be done at all. And I'm disgusted that every time Scott Morrison has something like this, that they're going to claim that it's about debt and deficit. It's just not. It's one of those things where I don't know why Scott Morrison is not asked the very same question. And I'm frustrated that they keep talking about it like that. And here's the deal. If they want to claim that, cool. That it's all about the debt and how much money it is. Why don't you ask the LNP why they racked up that much money in rorts? It's disgusting.
Way that you deal with growth by boosting productivity, that's our priority. But the second thing we've done as well is to make sure...
Well, the question was about debt. Sorry,
yes,
Mr. Albanese.
Yes.
The question was about debt, though.
Yeah,
More debt?
And debt's a product of inputs and outputs, David. What we're saying is that our investments are about boosting the inputs, making sure that we put downward pressure on debt, making sure that we're fiscally responsible. But the other thing that we've done is clearly indicate that the Departments of Treasury and Finance will be tasked this year to go through line by line and get rid of the waste and rorts that are riddled through this budget. This government...
Notice how he points out the rorts and stuff? And David really doesn't want him to touch it because that would mean actually addressing a real issue. This is frustrating at best. And I don't know why David gets to do that. It's one of those things like they always put it out there as if this is the correct thing that they should have done. You know, deal with the debt, deal with the debt. The Liberal Party racked up all this debt and they're responsible for it. But I haven't heard it, you know, any of the LNP's policies, anyone asked the LNP, well, what are you going to do about the debt you created? No. Labor have a policy that actually says we're going to raise the standard of living, and they're like, what about the debt? They don't answer people who made that possible.
Created multiple slush funds whereby it's using expenditure to boost its own political standing. We don't know even how much is in all of those funds because there's no transparency under this government. Okay. And we believe that does have to be gotten under control. We'll have more to say about that this week. But we recognise that these issues are important. So it's that two-pronged strategy. One, get rid of waste and rorts, reduce the impact of the budget by doing that. But secondly as well, prioritise our investments to areas that grow the economy through productivity growth.
A few other issues just quickly. You've promised to make a referendum on...
See, what he's actually outlining a really, really strong policy here. And how it's being portrayed isn't fair. It's something that shouldn't be done, the litmus test for only Albo. And I'm repulsed that they're doing it, you know. It's like it only applies if Albo's doing it. It's wrong, and I think that we need to deal with that. And that's what's really annoying me, is that they're pretending like only Labor needs to prove everything, which is wrong.
An Indigenous voice to Parliament a priority if you're elected. Referenda typically need bipartisan support in Australia to succeed. Many of those who want a voice, though, don't want to wait any longer. What would be your approach? Wait for bipartisanship or just proceed regardless?
I don't want to wait, David. This is a change that has been a long time coming. We've been talking about it since at least the end of last century. I'll consult with First Nations people about the timetable. I'll reach out across the Parliament if I am elected as Prime Minister next Saturday to try to secure support as much as possible. This is a nation-changing moment. And just as the apology to the stolen generations made our country stronger, this is a generous offer from First Nations people. All they're asking for is a bit of politeness, basically good manners. Says that if you have an issue that affects directly the health, the education, the housing, the lives of First Nations people, you should consult them. That's what a voice to Parliament is. It's not a third chamber, it's not anything else, and we should recognise that in our Australian Constitution, because our history didn't begin in 1788, nor, of course, did it end then. But the problem with this Prime Minister is he said he would act on this term. He doesn't want a voice to Parliament. The only voice Scott Morrison ever wants to hear is his own.
Exactly.
On climate change, you've said you're listening to this.
And he's not trying to create a third chamber. He's trying to make sure that they get a voice that's representative. They've tried this false narrative before. And I think that it's a bad faith argument that they're trying to have. And I want to make it absolutely clear. If they're going to be stupid enough to make the debate that it turns it into a third chamber of any sort because of this, I would argue how. How would that make it a third chamber actually consulting that? No evidence to support it, but it doesn't matter. That they've already got the jump on the rhetoric around it. They did this last time too, the moment it was proposed.
Science. If the scientists tell you need to go further than your 2030 target of 43%, will you?
What we haven't done is come up with a figure and then work out how to get there. What we've come up with is good policy, using a range of methods, supporting renewables, supporting the safeguard mechanism that was established by Tony Abbott, supporting incentives for electric vehicles by reducing taxes, community batteries, working with industry. We have an opportunity to end the climate wars. Our policy will result in a 43% reduction by 2030, but on the way through, we'll create 604,000 jobs. 5 out of every 6 of them will be in regional Australia. The renewables will be 82% of the national energy market by 2030 under our plan. We will see growth in new industries, so clean and cheaper energy, driving new industries through our National Reconstruction Fund, and then skilling up Australians for those jobs through fee-free TAFE and additional university places. That's the vision I have, a clean energy economy that is growing, that sees Australia become a renewable energy superpower for the world.
And a couple just quickly here on COVID. The pandemic's still very much with us. In fact, about 38 people a day on average are dying in Australia from COVID. We have one of the highest infections.
That's a really, really good point. 38 people a day are still dying from COVID. We have the highest infection rate in the world. And yet, the media have stopped talking about it. And that's what concerns me. Why? Because they're disingenuous about their concern over COVID. First it was a big story, now that it's not a bigger story, they don't care.
Infection rates in the world right now. Only 70% of eligible adults have had their third dose vaccine. In some parts of the country, it's less than 50%. Would you do any more about that?
What I would do, David, is to really ramp up the education campaign in order to encourage people to get their booster shots, to get that third dose, and we're not getting the publicity that we used to get.
No mandates, no.
We're not getting the publicity that we used to get. The fact that people have been vaccinated means that the impact on many people...
Alvo pointed it out perfectly. This isn't getting the headlines that it used to because the media is no longer interested in the issue. If they were, they would be doing something about it. But they're not. They're disingenuous as a whole. They're about... Because it's not good for Scott Morrison to be talking about COVID and the deaths around COVID and what about COVID. It turns into a whole new issue. And that's partly because Scott Morrison can't get re-elected if they remember that he didn't get the vaccines right. He didn't do quarantine right. He attacked the premiers that were doing something right. He attacked mask mandates and lockdowns. He's attacked every avenue of this. He even jumped onto a thing with Clive Palmer and tried to sue the WA government. It's beyond a grift at this point. And the media stopped talking about it because it doesn't help Scott Morrison's re-election campaign.
I've had COVID during this campaign, as you know, David, and you had it at the beginning of the campaign. More than half my shadow cabinet have caught COVID since the budget. So we know the infection is out there. We know that the more people are vaccinated, the better the health outcomes will be. But this government could stop using... They've used $1 billion on political advertising, essentially spruiking their credentials, including pretending that their record on climate is anything other than abominable. What they should be doing is channeling funds into making sure that we promote those vaccination rates.
A final question, Anthony Albanese. If you win on Saturday, you'll have to go within days to Tokyo for a meeting of the Quad leaders. Beyond that trip, what would you like to make your first official visit? Which country?
Well, I would have prioritised. I've said this in the past. My first visit as opposition leader was to Indonesia. It was my intention that would be my first visit if I had the great honour of being elected Prime Minister, as it is.
Now the Quad deal that we spoke about earlier, which Scott Morrison accused the Labor government of trying to dip out of, which it absolutely did not. It's disingenuous at best. At worst, it makes it look like Scott Morrison is lying through his freaking teeth. I don't know. It's another sign that they don't have a clue on how any of this actually works. I'm disgusted in it. I don't know why they get to keep doing this.
If we do form government, I will have to travel to Tokyo to the Quad leaders meeting. It will be a great honour to meet with Narendra Modi, Prime Minister Kishida and President Biden, to renew my friendship with him at the Quad leaders meeting. It's meeting next Tuesday, and that will be important that Australia be represented there. But I would visit Indonesia as soon as possible. Also, the Pacific Island Forum is being held very early in June, so that will be an opportunity to meet Pacific leaders.
Anthony Albanese, appreciate you joining us in this final week of the campaign. Thank you.
Thanks very much, David.
whoever is copywriting my video, ELECTON or whatever your name is, I don't care. I really, really do not care. You want to copyright it, go ahead. But I can tell you now, I'm going to change my intro yet again. And I know that that's my own intro. I know because I made it. You idiot. What did you do? I'll make an election one 30 seconds in and you won't have anything. And if you're able to still claim that as some sort of thing in that you've got, congrats, buddy. You've really mastered Facebook. What an idiot. I don't know why some hobo that's not even speaking English gets to do that. Oh, I'm so frustrated. I think that was an excellent interview on Insiders. I think David Spears definitely learned his lesson from what happened with Tanya Plesbeck and Albo before and others. I think they're slowly getting it that you have to give it equal time, let the interviewer, the person that you're interviewing actually answer, not just jump in. It's smart. I don't know why they'd want to cut him off to begin with, but that's a whole nother thing. I think that this is going to be an ongoing issue with the media, these gotcha questions. If we're honest, these gotcha questions will always be part of politics, no matter which side you're on. Unfortunately, though, if you're on the left, you're more susceptible to them because they're not about being honest about what their positions are. They're about making it sound as if, wow, I got you, and that's going to make the headline. And it's about helping the LNP all at the same time. And if you think that I'm kidding about them helping the LNP, have a look at how many times they repeated the carbon tax line. And they knew it wasn't a tax. They knew it was a trading emissions scheme. It was never a tax. It was never meant to be called a tax. But Peter Credlin ran with the line that it was a tax. And now the media calls it a tax. Rather than what it was a carbon emissions scheme, charging it people for the emissions that they were doing and giving them rebates for being more neutral in their emissions, so that way that they would reach a zero emissions moment. And I think that that's the point, isn't it? Is that they get the line and they get to run with it, and we have to just put up with the fact that the media get to own the rhetoric of the LNP. I think that that's what makes this so difficult to deal with, is that they just on face value go, oh no, they're being honest with you, and everything else doesn't matter. I can't understand how they get to do that. There is 1 week till the next election. I would invite for you to have those hard conversations that we've been talking about in group. And the sort of conversations that you should have should go something like this. I know that you plan to vote this election. I understand how that should happen, and I know that typically you voted one way, but this time we need to get rid of the current government. I am having very similar discussions like that with people that I know. And I've been trolled heavily on it too by people that I've known my whole life. So don't think that even people like me don't engage them. I have to. And I think it'd be a wrong misstep for that to be put out there, that I'm not affected by that kind of rhetoric, that they put out there as if, conservatism is the only way. It's not. And there's clearly not, because that's why we have a good Medicare system and unions and other things in education. Anyway, that's it for this week. get voting, get to the pre-poll, make sure that we get rid of this government. Have a lovely night, and thank you for another week of This Week in Politics. See you next week.